Hello and welcome to our second session of our after school club. My name is Kim. I am a community learning specialist with DoSpace, and we are making where's my template? Oh, there it is. Today we are making a solar paneled powered paper house, which is pretty cool. So here it is. So basically that means with the power of the light, I can turn on a little light bulb or light a little light bulb inside. Now this is gonna get tricky because I want to show you, but I already have the, and I should have kept my other example, what I'm gonna do is we're gonna kind of find the light bulb and I'm gonna turn, basically, there should be a little light bulb, maybe it's the other way. I see this. I think it's this way that you can see it. Oh, there it is. You see my little light, my little LED light. It is being lit up by my flashlight. So I'll even take it away, put it back up. You can see kind of getting brighter and going away. Yeah, so it's our little house powered by light or by the sun if we were outside. Unfortunately, we cannot be outside right now. I wish we were. You never know, but yeah, this is what we're going to be making today. And I got my inspiration, my template from a website called Left Brain Left Craft. And so if you're interested in that template, you can go there, Left Brain Left Craft, for their solar powered house template. And yeah, so it's really cool. So kind of the science behind it is maybe you've heard about solar power, maybe you haven't, depending on how old you are and who is watching. But for maybe our younger kiddos that this is for, basically it is energy from the sun that is turned into electricity. So a lot of times our electricity comes from like burning coal or burning gas. That is then, at electrical companies that's used to make energy that is then filtered to like our home. So our lights can be on and we can run our toaster and our blender and our dishwasher and washing machine and things like that. But there are alternative ways to create energy to power those things around your house, and that is with solar power. So this little panel is a solar panel, and basically how it works, it takes the energy from the sun. So the sun emits the light that we see from the sun comes from tiny little particles, like particles called photons. And in these panels, there are many photovoltaic cells, so that absorb the photon light, so the light particles that come from the sun. There are little cells that kind of absorb that light. And what's also in here are electrons. So electrons are just like, also again, just teeny, teeny, teeny bits of particles. And the light from the sun kind of makes them, like, excites them and gets them moving, and which creates energy. And because just like any battery, like if you say, for example, I have this little battery right here. This is called a coin cell battery, or you might be more familiar with like a AA battery or AAA, some things that go in your toys or in your remote controls. Those batteries are also full of electricity, full of electrons, but they're already kind of like activated, right? They're already like wanting to get out of they're just jam packed into these little batteries and they're wanting to get out. And how they get out is through a circuit. And so we've talked about circuits before. So a circuit is a path in which electricity flows. And so say, our battery was connected to two wires, then those wires were connected to a little LED light or something. The electrons that were really jam-packed into our cell would go out one side, our positive side, go through the wire, go to our light bulb, light that up, come back around to our negative side, negative side. And that's how those electrons would flow through that path, which would allow something to happen, like turning our electrons on. Well, this doesn't have a battery because the panel basically is the battery. It has basically the energy that is collected in this panel, just like the energy that's in here, that is used to light up our little light bulb. So that's kind of how it's different. And the nice thing about solar energy is that it's what's called sustainable, which means that we are able to get it without the cost the cost of building things, but it doesn't, we don't have to dig, and it doesn't have bad effects. Like there's nothing going into our air, there's nothing happening to us, to our world, other than like we're just collecting that sunlight, because in our lifetime, nothing is going to happen to our sun unless something crazy happens in the universe, and who knows, but I don't think anything is going to happening to our sun for millions, if not billions of years. So our sun, at least in our lifetimes, your and I's lifetimes, who's watching this, our sun is going to be a pretty constant. So the nice thing about it is that there are places in the world that have, like, people will put solar panels on their house, and that helps either completely, all the electricity in their house is completely gained from those solar panels, or partially. There are places that are putting up solar panels and really, like in the desert, the desert's so hot, and it's so hot because it gets a lot of sun and there's not a lot of cloud coverage. And so places where it's like really sunny out, people are putting up what are called solar panel farms. And so they just have solar panels after solar panels, and it's absorbing that light. And it could help, provide electricity for entire towns, right? And it doesn't have that much of a cost to the people and to our earth. And so it's a good, what's called a green energy. So yeah, so that's kind of how the little bit of history between our solar panels. So I think we should go ahead and start making our solar powered little paper house. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to zoom down my camera so you can see the other materials that we will need for our craft today. Let's see if I can get everything in. So other things that you are going to need. So these are my templates. Again, the template I got from Left Brain. I've been saying it wrong. It's Left Brain Craft Brain. Have I been saying that? I hope I have. Left Brain Craft Brain. So that's where I got the template. And so I just copied the template on 2 pieces of colorful paper. And let's see, I feel like I'm a little bit out of focus. There we go. So I have, this is the house part, and then this is our base and our roof. So I just made copies on colorful paper. This is just kind of copy paper. I made this out of what's called cardstock. I had an earlier example that was made out of just white copy paper. It's whatever you have. The copy paper worked just fine. This is a little bit maybe like more sturdy, but if you don't have cardstock around the house and you just have copy paper is just fine. And if you have white, that's totally fine too. I just happen to have these fun colors, so I decided to copy them down on these fun colors. But if you just have white, that means you can just like color it any color you want with markers or crayons. So you're going to need that. You're going to need some scissors because we're going to need to cut out our templates. You're going to need a little solar panel. So this is a 5-volt solar panel, and we just got this off of Amazon. And they're pretty expensive. I think for like 4 of them, it was $13, something like that. So pretty inexpensive on Amazon. We need some copper tape. Our copper tape is going to act as our wiring a little bit. So this is going to allow the electricity that we gain from my phone, from the flashlight of my phone, into our light bulb. Let me turn my flashlight off. There we go. You're going to need a LED bulb, and so I have a whole bunch of them. I'm going to be using a yellow one. If you were here for my earlier session, then you might, I had an earlier session that I tried it with a red one, and it didn't work. didn't work, but I tried then with the yellow one and it worked. So we're going to stick with our yellow one because I know that works with our light. So because fun fact, LED bulbs need different voltages amounts to work. And so you just need to, so obviously if you get a multicolor, so you might have to like experiment a little bit. Maybe there's even a color on here that would work better than yellow, maybe blue or green. Red does not work. Don't use green or red. Or maybe if we were out in the sun and we were getting like that, like higher sunlight instead of a phone, you know, again, you might need to experiment a little bit. Nothing wrong with experimentation. You're gonna need some tape. I have some Scotch tape and some electrical tape. Either way works. We're gonna need some glue, a glue stick. So definitely that. And you may or may not need a wire stripper. So that's what this is. And I'll talk about that a little bit more what this does when we need to. So let's get started. So I'm gonna move some stuff around and move some stuff to the side. And then I'm gonna start cutting out my templates. So I am going to cut this out, and what we're going to do is we want to make sure that we're cutting out the template on the solid black line. So you should be able to see, maybe it might be hard with this blue paper, but kind of on the inside there's a lot of dotted lines. You do not want to cut on those lines. Only on the outside, on the solid line. So that's what I'm going to do first, is cut out on my solid lines. So again, I am using tiny little kiddo scissors because in our program supply closet for Do Space, because pre-COVID we did a lot of kids programming and therefore we needed kid-sized scissors. I sometimes tend to just grab these because they're right there, and then I use them and then I realize they are too small. That's okay. For my first prototype on making this, I used regular size scissors. So, but when I did my first session of this, of this craft, my first session was basically the same thing, which is why I'm referring to it, because we're basically making the same thing, just at a different time. Because people aren't always available at the same times, right? People might be just turning in if they weren't available to tune in an hour ago. So yeah. So as you can see, I'm just cutting out everything on the solid lines and getting our template cut out. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is I am going to cut out some of these windows. I'm just going to do these two. I'm not going to really do that one. Obviously, you can do all three, but these are the windows, and then I'm going to cut out the front door as well. So those are solid lines. So I can cut that out. And then I feel like cutting out area in the middle of a piece of paper can always be a little bit tricky. I don't know. I always do the classic, like fold it in half and then make a snip in the middle. And then you can go from there. That's how I grew up doing it. Do you know a better way? I don't know a better way. If you know a better way, let me know what this better way is, because maybe I need to be using this better way and showing this better way. Okay, that's going to be my first window. And it doesn't look perfect, but that's okay. That's the great thing about crafting, is that you can have it look as good, or in your opinion, good or not good, as you want. That's the fun thing about crafting. I am one of those people that can be a little bit of a perfectionist, but I have found that a lot of times people don't even notice if you make a mistake. You notice because you did it. And so a lot of times, like, I'm big into knitting, and I've given gifts and I'm like, I didn't realize I made a mistake until a bit after, and it would have taken so much time to undo all my work and redo it, and I just didn't have time to. So I didn't necessarily fix it, and then I gave it as a present. I was like, I'm so sorry for how it looks, and they're like, what are you talking about? This looks fine, you know? Because a lot of times people don't see your mistakes, and a lot of times you see your mistakes. Okay, so I'm gonna cut that out, and then we are going to cut out, this is our roof template, and then our base, so I'm gonna cut those out too. And even if they see your mistakes, most people don't care. They don't care that you made a mistake. Because, you know, people aren't perfect, and, you know, if you're doing this as like an educational exercise, you know, just you're learning. And, you know, the first one, if you make a first one, it could be a prototype or a test of making something. And then the next time you make it, after you kind of figure out the ins and outs, because a lot of times, you know, people will make prototypes or test. And they'll, you know, create something as kind of a test. There we go. My camera seems to be going in and out of focus. Just to, you know, make sure, you know, they get it right, and then they'll make the same thing again. And now, since they know kind of the ins and outs, and if there's a difficult part, they've maybe worked through it already. And so it's a lot easier to do a second time. You know, it's like practicing, right? Same with crafting. You have to practice to do things. You're not going to be perfect the first time. You know, it's not like you'd pick up a trumpet and the first time you play a trumpet, you'd be perfect. Same with crafting. You can't be perfect. Okay, so we have our template. So what we're going to do is we are going to fold. The dotted lines are fold lines, actually. So we are going to fold then our on our dotted line. So that means basically these end parts are tabs, and that's where we're going to be putting glue. So, and then the fold lines in between kind of our squares, those are our walls or our sides of our house. So those are going to be how we make our rectangular house. And I found in my template that even though this triangle has dotted lines to fold, I have found that I do not need to fold it. I'm not really sure. And even looking at the picture on the on the template, or on the where I got it from Left Brain, Craft Brain, I'm not seeing why they folded on that line, but who knows. But you're going to want to fold on the other lines, because those are going to be our tabs, in which we're going to glue onto other things, and then our walls. Okay, so we got that nice and folded. So the first one I'm going to do is if we spread it out, there's going to be tab on one end, and that's where I'm going to put my glue. And that's going to basically, this tab is going to go onto the inside part of the opposite wall, so it comes together like a little house. So I found that sometimes easier just to put my scrap. It's easier just to put the tab down and then put the glue on. See, my glue is blue or purpley, and my paper is purpley, so I can't really see it. That's okay. And then you can kind of line up the edges. Nice thing about stick glue I have found is that it doesn't dry so fast that if you have to readjust, you can. But then once it does dry, it's like pretty solid glue. It's decent glue. Okay. And then we're not going to do these yet, these top ones. We're going to wait till the very end. But what we want, this is so where the triangles are, is obviously a part of our roof. So this is our floor, I guess. And so these tabs we are going to glue onto our base or our floor. So I'm going to these are a little bit trickier to do one side and then the other. don't want to glue. So maybe I won't do it like that. I'll just kind of use my finger as a stabilizer for this tab. Okay. And then, boom, you can kind of fold those down. And, oh, did I not fold this one? I may not have folded one. Oh no, I'm gonna have sticky fingers. Oh no, friends, I have sticky fingers because I didn't fold down a tab like I should have. Fold down all your tabs so you don't put glue. Okay, I'm gonna use the walls or the windows to kind of press down. Maybe I'll just go on the inside. Kind of press down those tabs. You can kind of see the tabs. See, not perfect. I did not put this on very well at all, and that's okay. It's not straight, but it doesn't need to be straight. Okay, perfect. Now our house is built. Okay, so now let's work on our roof. So this is our template for our roof. And this, I'm going to maybe zoom in a little bit. This is kind of where our electronics knowledge will come into play. So we talked about how our battery, did we talk about how our battery is polarized? All batteries, no matter what they are, have a positive side and a negative side, whether it's the small batteries that you use like this, or in a watch, or AA batteries, or 9-volt batteries that you might put in toys, like car batteries, big batteries like that, have a positive and negative kind of terminals or sides. So this has a positive side and a negative side. Well, our little LED lights are also polarized. So that means so these legs, these little metal legs here, you might be able to see that one is longer than the other. And that is our indicator that this leg or this lead is our positive lead, and this leg is our negative one. So we have a positive and negative, and when we are creating a circuit, we just want to make sure that our positive leg is connected to our positive side or positive terminal of our LED, and our negative side is touching our negative side or negative terminal on our battery. So we are going to test this little LED. And we're going to do that by basically making a little coin cell battery sandwich. We kind of have our legs spread out a bit. So we're basically going to stick our battery right in between these two legs so that each metal leg touches each side of our battery. And we just need to make sure that our positive, our long leg, I'm going to kind of put this underneath, our positive or our long leg is touching our positive side of our battery, and then our negative leg is touching our negative side. So when I press those down together, so our legs are touching, I have one on each side, positive to positive, negative to negative, we know that our LED light works. So huzzah. So we know by testing, and it's always good to test ahead of time your LED. You don't want to be, having built this entire thing and then your LED not work, and then you're like, why doesn't it work? And then you test it, and maybe something happened or it was a dud. And so you always want to test, especially with circuits. It's so good to be able to test as much as you can. So we that is going to be important because just like our batteries, this is basically, our panel is basically a battery. It is going to be absorbing and creating the energy it needs to light up our LED. And so because of that, it also is polarized. So we can see on the back, we have a little positive and a little negative. And even if I didn't see those, I would know which side was positive and which side was negative by the coloring of the wire. So a lot of times in electronics, electronics, and other things include, that have to do with circuits, red means positive and black means negative. Or sometimes it's represented in blue, but red is positive, black is negative. So I would, even if I didn't see this little positive negative icons on the back of this panel, I would know that I would need to connect this side, this wire needs to be touching the, or connected to my positive or long leg of my LED. And this side, the black wire side, needs to be connected to my short side or my negative leg of my LED. So that is what's important. So I have it, so basically, oh yes, also we need to make sure we fold this in half. Fold it in half, it makes like a tent, which is then going to be our roof. So make sure you do that. And that's going to be also important as we put down our tape. So basically this would be long enough to like wrap around if I wanted to. So for example, I have another solar panel. So this one, the wires are a little bit shorter. And so, but I have another one where the wires are a little bit longer. So you might have to trim them down. So obviously if I were to wrap this wiring of this panel, of this particular panel around, it's super, super long. And so this is almost too long. So you would probably have to cut this down. And then if you did that, you would also need to expose the wire. So you, it might be hard to see, but basically the red and the black outside of our wires, that's not the wire, that's the insulator. That's keeping the inside, the metal inside, because metal is conductive. So conductive means something that allows electricity to flow through it. And the outside of this, the color part, is just the insulator. It just keeps it from touching, because we don't want anything to short circuit. Or if we were in a more complex, circuit, if wires were touching and crossing, then it could cause a lot of damage to parts or components. And so this just helps protect the wiring and the electrons, basically, the flow. It helps protect the flow of the electrons. And so if you needed to snip this, then you would need to use what's called a wire stripper to kind of strip away, an easy way to strip away and expose the wire inside. And that'll make sense in a few minutes of why we need to do this. And so basically it's kind of like a little, I think it kind of looks like a dragon or an alligator. And it basically kind of cuts around. It doesn't cut through your wire. It just cuts around it. And then you pull and it cuts the insulator and not the wire. So then you can see it has, it's kind of hard to tell. Maybe is that a little bit better? You can see how it's exposed the metal wiring inside. So just like this, like these metal wiring. So you might need to do that. So for this, I have kind of already prepped it where I cut it and strip the wiring. And so, but obviously the wiring inside, it's like really, it's not flimsy, it's just thin. There's lots of thin like threads. It's almost like it's really thin and thready. So it would be really, really hard to connect the threads of this wire to our legs of our LED and make a good connection. So what we're going to do instead is we are going to put down some of this copper tape. And this copper tape is conductive tape. And again, conductive means it allows electricity to flow through it. So when we put it down, we'll be able to spread the legs of our LED light and have it really good and connected and touching our copper tape. And then same with this, and that'll make a little bit more sense. But when we actually do it, I always think things make more sense when you see it as opposed to explaining it. And maybe because I'm just not good at explaining things. I feel like I'm getting out of focus a lot. So let's see. Okay. So what we're going to do is we are just going to lay down two separate pieces of this copper tape. And you can see on my template that I have a negative and a positive. And that's going to be kind of our indicators of how to arrange our LED light and how to arrange our panel as well. So, but we don't want one long piece across because then the electricity that we're getting from the light through our panel, electricity likes to take the path of least resistance, which means it just wants to take the easy way. So if basically if we had this all connected and there was like one solid line, the electricity is going to be going from one end of our panel through the copper wire to the other end of our panel, through the wires and the copper tape. And that's really easy to do. It's a lot harder for our electricity to go through our LED to light it up. So even if we had everything right and we had but one solid piece of copper tape across the way, it's not going to light this up. That's called a short circuit. So what we're going to do is we're going to put down 2 pieces of copper tape. And I had, let's go. So what, I'm just going to kind of measure it basically from the circle to the end of the paper, just like that. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. I sometimes think the copper tape is the hardest part to like separate from its bottom right bit. So an easy way to do that, instead of just like zipping all of this, the white part, because this is the sticky side, instead of taking all of this backing off immediately, I like to just get a little bit off, put down that first little exposed part, and then press that down, and then I'll pull the white part, and then with my finger follow with it. So then it gets a nice smooth. And then we can just like wrap any excess around the back. And I'm going to do the same to the other side. So I'm just going to kind of measure it, tear. Okay. And also another kind of tip is I'm putting the tape not immediately on the fold on the inside. I'm kind of putting it to the side. You don't want to put it to the side to cover these circles, because then you won't not remember which is positive and which side is supposed to be negative. So don't cover those circles either. I just would put it below the line, below the circle. Okay, so now we have our pieces of tape, and now we're going to tape down our LED. So we know which sides are positive, we know which sides are negative. And with our LED, we know which sides are positive because it's the long leg, and we know which sides are negative because it's the little short leg. What we're going to do, we're going to basically spread these out like oops, I have to put it together again so I remember because I dropped it. Okay, this is our positive side. So we're going to spread these out kind of like the LED is doing the splits. Just like that. And then you're going to kind of just press it down. Oops. I think I worked that one too much. The leg fell off. Oh no. That's okay. It's always good to have backup materials, which I do. Okay, I have a backup LED. Gonna test it, make sure it works. It works, huzzah. Okay. So again, positive leg, positive, negative. I'm gonna spread the legs out of the leads or my legs out like it's doing splits. And I'm just gonna kind of put it down in a way that the light bulb is kind of right over this little dash in the middle. And then the legs are kind of, if you can get them inside the middle, let's see if I can scooch in a little bit, the middle of your tape, because we want our leads or our legs to touch as much of this copper tape as possible. The more they're touching, the better the connection and the better your electricity will flow through it. So then we're just going to take some Scotch tape, just a little bit. You don't need a very big piece, just a tiny square of it. And we're going to put it on. Now, I just have this little square because I don't want to cover this entire piece of copper tape. I just want to cover the part where the leg is. So I'm just going to put that down just to make sure it stays in place. And you can see how my leg is right in the middle of that copper tape. And then we're going to do the same to the other side. Just piece. And you can see that my legs are right in the middle, but also I have plenty of copper tape exposed for my panel. Okay. So now we're going to turn things a little bit around, because then our panel is going to be on the outside. So this is like the top of the house, right? So if this was a real life house, your solar panel is going to be on top of the roof, so it can be exposed to the sun and to get those light photons. So I've exposed a good amount of wire at the end of these, because again, the more we can expose, the better the connection can be. So I'm going to arrange it. So again, positive side, negative side, red is positive, black is negative. I'm just going to kind of put it down, and I know this side's positive, we have red wire, this side is negative, I have my black wire. And what we're gonna do is kind of wrap this around, and we wanna press and tape down the little threads or the little wire tendrils onto our copper tape. So we need our Scotch tape again. I'm gonna pack things up. So again, just a little square of it. And we're just gonna want to, I'm gonna turn this around. A bit easier orientation for me. So I'm gonna keep that pressed down. It's kind of hard to see if I have my little tendrils of my wire thoroughly connected to my copper tape, and I'm going to just tape that down. And then I'm gonna turn it around and do the same to the negative side, just making sure that I need my piece of tape. Okay, making sure that we're not over, again, you don't want the wire, there we go. You don't want that wire to go over the Scotch tape that you've already put down to keep the LED in place. So just make sure that it's only touching our copper wire or copper tape. Okay. So we may have just completed our circuit. So basically this is our battery. We have our battery connecting to our copper tape, which then our copper tape is connected to the positive side of our LED. And then on the other side, LED is connected to the copper tape. The black wire, the negative wire, is connected to the copper tape, which leads us to our negative side of our panel. So now it's the moment of testing. So it's kind of hard to test to make sure, since this is the battery, it's hard to tell if the battery will work. But let's see. I have a flashlight. Let's see if it works very well with this flashlight. I tried it before and it didn't work super well. Not maybe enough to make a difference. No. Let's try the battery or the flashlight on my. Oh, so you should be. It's hard to kind of tell because it's backlit, maybe. Let's see. Let's see if I can adjust my LED in a way that's, there we are. And it should be lighting up ever so much. Because the flashlight isn't a really great source of light photons, not like the sun, it's not going to be as bright. But you can see that a little bit of light is coming through. So it'll be easier to see, I think, once it's on the house. But it is working. It is working. And it doesn't help that our paper is a little translucent because it's not as thick. Our light on? Is it maybe because I'm touching it? Let's see.
Oh, there we go. Sometimes I feel like it's the angle. Let's see if I can get the right angle. Or maybe, oh, there we go. Oh, can you see? Can you see that the light is on? It might be that this panel's just not very good. But it's on just a little bit. I think it'd be better if it was out in the sun, obviously. Okay. So, last thing we need to do, obviously, is to complete the house. So, this is actually where I kind of found to be the trickiest part, is adding the roof onto it, because I feel like you have to kind of like adjust it a little bit. I don't know. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put glue on these tabs. A glue stick. Okay, I'm going to put glue on the tabs, and I will not be able to see them very well because I don't think I bent this tab either. I was not good about folding my tabs. I don't really think I need to fold this tab very much, but we're going to fold it anyway. Folded that one. How funny of me. Okay, we're going to put glue on these tabs, which means you might get some glue on your fingers. It's not a great way to do it. Without getting something behind it. Okay, there we go. And this is kind of where my weirdo perfectionist comes in, because I want it to be even on both sides of the house. I want it to be even. It doesn't matter. Maybe it matters to you. And if it does, there's nothing wrong with that. And if it doesn't, then go ahead and stick it on. I'm going to use the windows to help me kind of adjust and stick on as much as possible. It's not going to be the best roof. I'm noticing. And then also, if you need to, this is where you can kind of fold down if you want to. You can fold down that so you can see your light better. Okay, because it's kind of enclosed, it might be easier to see. Okay, I'm not sure. So let's see. Is it on? Turning on? Even just a little bit? Oh, focus, focus. I think it's turning on just a little bit. It's kind of hard to tell. Are you turning on even a little bit? Light? I think I'm having I might be having connection issues. Sorry. Like getting out of focus. I think I might be having connection issues. But this actually is a really great way to troubleshoot. So if something's not working, you might have to redo the whole entire circuit, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's a learning process, right? Sometimes it's just like you know, maybe you accidentally turn the LED, to the opposite side. So negatives to positive, positive is negative. You might have to redo that. You might have to redo how you tape things because the connection isn't the best. So it's a really great way to troubleshoot. But ultimately it'll work like this, and I'm gonna bend down this guy so you can hopefully more easily see how this light is lighting up. Is this light lighting up? It's not. Well, maybe my light from my flashlight is not working as well as it should. Maybe is it lighting up now? This was working before, friends. Oh, you gotta love technology and circuits, right? Anyway, it was working before, I promise you. Oh, that's why my connection fell out. So obviously I would have to fix that and troubleshoot. So I might be having a similar issue with this one. So that might be the case. You might have to troubleshoot. You might have to figure out where you went wrong. And that actually is a really great way to learn, because you now know what not to do and how to fix it. So anyway, so thank you guys so much for joining me this week for After School Club. I hope you join me next week. And we are going to be making designs. They're called tessellations. Let me just double check this. Basically, it's like a design where they all, like, everything fits into each other. Tessellation. Yeah, tessellation. And so basically it's where they're like a design is repetitive, but there's no gaps between any of the lines. So that is what a tessellation is. So I'm going to be teaching you how to make that next week. So hopefully you can join me next week for After School Club. And yeah, thanks for joining me today, and we will see you next time. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.